Hello, my name is Jorma Jyrkkanen. I'm a biologist who's worked with carcinogens and mutagens for many years, and I've studied pesticides and virology and all sorts of things, and cancer-causing substances especially. I've made a potential discovery that has considerable significance if validated. I found out that there's evidence that polyethylene glycol, which is used in mRNA vaccines, may have a probable human carcinogen 1,4-dioxane contaminant. So here's my abstract. I published this on 2023, 10/23, in Environment Gene Interactions. So, polyethylene glycol is a component of COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, and it is potentially contaminated with varying amounts of carcinogen 1,4-dioxane, which is listed in the California Proposition 65 carcinogen list, CAS registry, as number 123-91-1. The Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, atsdr, in a public health advisory I discovered, a preventative to reduce risk of cancer, recommends avoiding exposure to families to 1,4-dioxane by avoiding specifically PEG, polyethyleneamine, or polyethylene glycol, and listed contaminant products that may contain it. It is therefore risky to inject it into people where it may be distributed throughout the entire body, and vaccines must report the concentrations based on independent assays in order to assure the right of refusal and to validate permission of the recipients. The risk of additional carcinogen 1,4-dioxane is not alone. It is additive or even synergistic, possibly even multiplicatively, with other DNA contamination in the mRNA COVID shots, including simian virus 40, SV40, which has been found. It's a promoter of cancer, and SV40 has been linked to cancer in humans, including mesotheliomas, lymphomas, cancers of the brain and bone. In 2002, The Lancet published evidence linking polio vaccines contaminated with SV40 to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So if 1,4-dioxane is present, the presence of another carcinogen is certainly of a concern to public health. Keywords here: pathology, carcinogen, carcinogenesis, epidemiology and prevention, contaminant, toxin, polyethylene glycol, vaccine, permission, and blood. I've given the URL to access my article. So here it is, the toxicology of dioxane, which I've listed here. And EPA says there's an opportunity for risk management of 1,4-dioxane. And they classify it as a possible human carcinogen. However, the Surgeon General has stated that there is no safe level of carcinogen. So this is an EPA public health statement on 1,4-dioxane put out by the Division of Toxicology and Human Health Services. Limit children's exposure to consumer products which may contain 1,4-dioxane. It may be a contaminant of certain ingredients used in cosmetics, detergents, shampoos, and some pharmaceuticals, and in particular this mRNA. 1,4-dioxane isn't intentionally added, but may occur as an unintentional byproduct in some ingredients that may be listed on the product label. These are including PEG, polyethylene, polyethylene glycol, polyoxyethylene, and I happen to have known that is associated with polyoxyethyleneamine in Vision or glyphosate herbicides back in the 80s, so I don't know if it still is or not. Polyethylene glycol is a component of mRNA vaccines, and it says limit children's exposure to polyethylene glycol, not that it's okay to inject it in for children. Note that 1,4-dioxane is absorbed readily through the skin, so skin exposure is also contraindicated. Polyethylene amine, POEA, was found in glyphosate herbicide in the 80s. That was my reference, which is when I discovered 1,4-dioxane in it at 350 parts per million. POEA and 1,4-dioxane were then listed as a probable and possible human carcinogen. You also need to avoid PEG 100 stearate, sodium lauryl sulfate, SLES. You'll find this in a lot of shampoos and products like that. Cocamide, MEA, and DEA, in which 1,4-dioxane is produced during manufacture. There's an article on the role of polyethylene glycol on anaphylactic reactions to COVID-19 nanovaccines. Now, these anaphylactic reactions could be due to any number of ingredients inside the vaccines. Okay, polyoxyethylene is used as a stabilizer in nanomedicine formulations, has recently been implicated as a possible cause of the anaphylactic reactions against the COVID-19 mRNA-based vaccines. But the evidence supporting this is contradictory. Of course, they would say that. And other factors might be involved. That other factor might well be 1,4-dioxane. Okay. The problem is that there is probably incomplete disclosure of possible carcinogen contaminant, this one in particular. Okay. As a contaminant of polyethylene glycol, this finding that polyethylene glycol has this contaminant as a possibility is a human carcinogen. It may be present in all batches or some batches or possibly even no batches. This needs to be tested and increases the likelihood, if true, that there is a long-term cancer risk associated with these vaccines. This finding urges a stop to all vaccinations until it's sorted out. The presence of this potential contaminant should have been disclosed to approval authorities on discovery for approval. Now, we should check the record to see if that was done. As such, it represents a significant oversight and potential long-term cancer risk. That risk is combined with repeat attacks of COVID variants, which vaccines don't address. Mitochondrial damage-induced cancers, because mitochondrial damage can limit the immune contribution of mitochondria. It can also produce reactive oxygen and lipid peroxide, both of which have carcinogenic potential. And it can also change the metabolism from oxidative phosphorylation to aerobic glycolysis, which cancer cells really like very much. So the pesticide residues in diet might be there in people as well, which can contribute to the same effect of rupturing mitochondria. And then there's SV40, and if you add 1,4-dioxane in polyethylene glycol, it's a completely unacceptable cancer cocktail. And I would say that it's starting to look like it was engineered as an oncological disaster. I'm surprised to find my early discovery carcinogen present yet again in such circumstances. And I'll pull up the article here. This is the publication I made when I found the carcinogen in 1989. And these were listed then in Entering Sachs's book, Cancer-Causing Chemicals, as probable and possible human carcinogens. Despite this, Roundup and glyphosate herbicides went on to become the best-selling pesticide in the world. So it just shows you how effective discovering carcinogens can be in terms of altering the destiny of a product. Okay, that's all I have to say. Yes, thank you for your attention and your time. And let's get to the bottom of this and sort this out and do the right thing.